it's Marian. Welcome to 25 Days of Plantmas. This is a special My Oasis Life holiday series where I'll be talking about at least one of my plants per day, every day during Vlogmas. I'll be sharing with you the plant's journey with me ever since I've gotten it, all of our highs and lows, and of course how I care for and propagate the plant. So let's go check my plant vent calendar and see which one of my plants I'll be sharing with you today. Today is day 5 of 25 Days of Plantmas. And our plantmas of the day is my lavender plant. So this is my lavender plant, and I mentioned in day 1 of 25 Days of Plantmas that the fiddle fig is the first plant in my plant collection, which is true, but if I'm gonna get real technical about it, the first plant I ever bought in 2019 was this lavender plant. So before I bought this plant, I was buying flowers and cuttings from Trader Joe's, and I was doing that almost every week. And I just decided, let me just get a plant from Trader Joe's instead of me buying cuttings and flowers every week. So I got this lavender plant, and it was, I think, around January of this year when I got it. And it wasn't blooming yet. It started blooming, I think, sometime in March, just as spring was about to start. And at first it was my hanging plant. I was hanging it actually in this window because the flowers that was growing, it had really long stems and they were hanging down, and I thought it was beautiful. But now I realize it's probably because the plant was searching for light. That's why it became so leggy and stemmy. So that was my bad. I actually put this plant through a lot, and now that I realize it, especially after a plant friend commented that, oh, my lavender looks really good, especially for this time of year, that's when I realized how resilient this plant really is, because I did put through it a lot, and it was my plant when I was just starting to learn about taking care of houseplants, and I wasn't really into my plant journey yet. She was in the pre-journey. It has been through a lot, and at first I just kept it in this nursery pot for the longest time, and then as more plants entered my bedroom, this one was actually kind of pushed aside and pushed out of the bedroom, and eventually it was just became an outdoor plant. Because there were actually 3 lavender plants in one pot, I initially planned to separate them to smaller plants. I can't remember my reasoning why I wanted to do that, but in preparation I watched a video where for me to successfully transplant or separate plants that are in the same pot, I have to separate the roots first by cutting through the plant and separating them in the soil so that the roots would separate. I shouldn't take them out yet, but give them 2 weeks for the roots to heal while they're still in the pot. So I did that, but then 2 weeks passed and I just ended up not repotting it at all. Just kept it in a nursery pot. It was doing fine while it was outside, and eventually I just moved the entire thing into this ceramic pot. It was doing fine. This actually has been pruned a lot already, and the latest pruning it got, I tried to shape it into a Christmas tree, but it wasn't really that successful. But I tried. It was an attempt. You could see the video where I talked about me trying to do a DIY on this, but it failed. But for the most part, this has been a very low-key plant, and it has been a very resilient plant, which I really admire from this. I haven't had any much trouble with it when it comes to pests. If I ever fertilized it, it might have been because there were leftover fertilizers from my fiddle fig or my monstera that I didn't use on them, and I'll just pour it on this one. So that's how it got fertilized. So this plant was pretty much an afterthought, but now I'm kind of like paying attention to it just because how resilient and how flourishing it has been. I might have mentioned it in my fall plant collection video or my summer plant collection video that I'm very surprised with how well this plant is doing, because it still produced flowers for me at the end of summer when I don't think lavenders typically still flower. And I think a couple months back I started getting into sage burns, but they were kind of expensive to buy, so I just learned how to make them. And I've used the cuttings from the lavender and also the dried leaves from this lavender plant and made them into sage burns, which is this one. And this is like a bigger version of the smaller version. It's basically just sage, rosemary, and lavender that's tied together with twine. and I just let it dry, and I use it either as a air freshener. And I have this hanging in my bathroom, and sometimes also when I have my humidifier running, I put it on top of the steam, which probably something I shouldn't do, but I do it anyways. Amidst the aroma from this dried herbs, or like this smaller one, I put it in my clothes drawer just to keep everything smelling fresh. And I'd never really actually used it to burn, just because I'm afraid of setting off my sprinklers, because when you do light this up, it does smoke quite up a bit. So I don't light them up inside the house ever. One time that I did, it was just like smoking a lot, and I just didn't want to trigger the sprinklers and the smoke alarm, so I stopped doing it. I do collect the dried leaves that it has, because it has quite a bit of dry leaves at the bottom, which is common for herbs, and I just collect them. I don't throw them out, and I probably use it as a lavender pouch, and I don't really throw them out. I just collect the lavenders, and the other, I just collect the dried lavender leaves. And other use that I have for the lavender plant is making lavender oil. It's basically just sticking some dried leaves. You could use fresh leaves too, but I just prefer dried leaves just to make sure there's zero moisture when I'm making the lavender oil, and just like stick it into a carrier oil, which right now is a sunflower oil that I'm using. So you could also use grapeseed oil. Basically any oil that's light and doesn't have any taste or smell on it will do well as a carrier oil when you're making lavender oils, or any other essential oil that you might think of. But yeah, so this is my lavender plant, the Plantmas of the day, my OG plant, and the first plant that I ever bought in 2019 from Trader Joe's. That's our Plantmas story of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow for the next installment of 25 Days of Plantmas. And if you miss any episodes, all of them will be included in the playlist that links up in the card and down in the description. Thanks again for watching. I see you, I appreciate you, and have a plentiful holiday season, everyone. Bye!